You're listening to That's the Hashtag Truth with Daniel and Jenny Muscatell, where we let real people get real honest about the bottom line. So today we have joining us Len Tran, who is a professional speaker, author, and martial artist. Len continues to strive and push his own limits while inspiring others not to let go of their inner drive. As a martial artist for more than 35 years, he trains himself and his students to become better than who they were. With the right focus and discipline, staying the course simply means success is waiting at the other end. He received a bachelor's in chemical engineering and has worked more than 20 years professionally in the engineering intellectual property field. Len, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Oh, we're so glad to have you. I have almost finished reading your memoir. I only have a couple of chapters left. Split Up by the Sea is the name of the book, and it is truly incredible. Your story and what you've been through is so multifaceted, but the one thing that stood out to me the most through your entire story is just your ability to adapt and push through with this wonderful attitude of optimism and gratitude. And it's truly inspiring. Can you share a little bit about your story or maybe your book for people who haven't heard about it yet?
Yeah, certainly. When I decided to write this memoir, actually, the first focus was to write a motivational book. I've been in the engineering field for the last 20 years. I have 50 people working under me. And one day I was sitting in my office and I thought, you know what, let me just write a short 50 pages or so manuscript of how to be motivated, because I want my employees to be motivated.
Mhm.
And after the first chapter, I realized, wait, I'm adding elements that happened to me when I first came to America with my dad. And then I was like, okay, it's pretty nice to have that element in the book so that, my employees can see what I had gone through so that they can copy or mimic. And then I got to the second chapter and I did the same thing. I'm like, wait, I'm bringing back the journey of the boat again. And so I said, you know what? I think it's a calling. Let's write a memoir. So then I scrapped everything. I told my wife, I said, you know what? I want to write a memoir, but yet I'm scared. I'm like, my background is engineering. I'm no writer. I'm a mathematician and a formula guy, not descriptive writing. Until I said, you know what? Let's give it a try. And so I decided to write about my journey with me and my dad and 23 other people on a small fishing boat escaping Vietnam in 1982 to find freedom. And it was extremely hard for me because I've been having unanswered questions, because it doesn't matter how much I ask my dad, he really hasn't given me an answer. Because that day in 1982 when we left, it was only he and I. We had to leave my mom, 4 siblings, and at that time she was also 7 months pregnant. But it was a tough decision for my dad to make, because either we are gonna get onto that boat to find freedom or to find death, right? So it's like, okay, are we gonna for my dad, it's like, should he bring the entire family and die together or find freedom together? So it was a very difficult decision for him to make. And as I was writing this memoir, and there were a lot of times that brought me tears that I never had back then, right? Because I mean, only when you write a book, that's when you reflect more, and then you do that deep dive. But that story, that memoir, allows me to go back in time to see the confusion, the turmoil that my dad was facing. But luckily, because of that, he also taught me how to be a gentleman, with the mindset of, life can throw you down, but you should always be able to look up and get back up, because it's not about staying down there. Yeah, we all fall. We want to stay down there, but just don't stay down there too long. You just got to get back up, and that's what he taught me. and that book is a dedication to my father.
Yeah. What
Wow.
was now is your dad still alive?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. What was his reaction to the book and you dedicating that to him?
So that's the part, because the book was debuted back in late October, so it has
Mhm.
been 4 or 5 months now. Um, I actually customized a hard copy. It's still on my desk right now, and I'm trying to, find time where Dad and I can sit together and to say, "Hey, Dad, look, this is for you. I want you to read this because
Mm,
everything here, I'm dedicating this book to you because you have taught me so much, and I'm extremely happy that my father is still alive, so that I can have this conversation with him.
yeah.
'Cause I do have friends who want to write something, who wanted to say something, but when your parents passed away, it's I don't want to say it's too late, but
Yeah.
you just lose that connection. And I'm happy that my dad is still here with me, and yes, it's gonna be uh, in the very very near future, because Dad just went back to Vietnam with Mom just a few days ago, and but when he comes back this April, because he's gonna be there for a month, I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
Dad, it's for you, because April is a very important date for us,
Mhm.
because April 30th was when we lost Vietnam, and
Mm.
Mm.
I want to dedicate this book at that month for him.
Oh, that's really special. I well, I say character, but it's not really a character because it's your real dad. But in a book, in the writing sense, I look at your dad's character in the book and he taught you a lot of things, you get that sense. I was like, oh my goodness, his dad has all this wisdom that he imparts on you that just gives you the ability to kind of pick yourself up, like you say, and move upward. And there's really a truly powerful thing about a dad's presence in their kid's life, a mom's too, in a different way. But that was really very special. You could see that.
Yeah. When we came to America, he was 35, I believe, 35, 36. Most people who I know at that age,
Mhm,
you would rather, come to America. You have a new life, a new future, and the first thing you want to do is it's make money.
mhm,
Uh, his mindset was different. He's 36-year-old man with a 8-year-old son, and his mentality was, you know what, I'm going back to school. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, at that time, for an 8-year-old boy, all I just want to do is play, right? But when I see my dad,
right.
oh, I'm going back to school to study. I was like, wow, Dad, you go back to school as well? You don't even know English, and his English was, he knows a little, but still, still
Mhm,
limited. But when he decided to say, hey, yeah, at 36, I don't care that I'm going to just to get my GED. I don't mind sitting with 19, 20-year-old kids. And
mhm,
that's what he did. He did that for a while until he got his GED, and
Yeah.
he immediately enrolled himself into a community college. That time I was in third grade, and we were living in the South Bronx, and I don't know if you've ever been to the South Bronx in the 1980s, but
No.
probably the worst place you want to be in. Uh, and so Dad would go to school, I would be home by myself, and one day Dad said, "You know what? Uh, Come to my class." And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, not that I didn't have enough of my school day already, and so I followed Dad to his community college. He was in a 2-year community college, and it was a night class. And when I walk into the room, I was like, oh my goodness, so many adults. I mean, first time I see an adult class,
mhm,
and I'm sitting in the back doing my homework, and I keep looking at my dad, and at that moment, I feel so proud of him. I'm like, wait,
mhm,
Dad is much older than these kids. I mean, they were what, 18, 19-year old.
Yeah.
Well, they're older than me, um, but I was like, wow, he's double their age, and he's still sitting there, um, immersed into what the teacher was telling them.
mhm,
And because of that, it has ingrained in my mind that I have to be like that. I just cannot disappoint him. So everything that I do from that point on is like, okay, you know what? It's not that I cannot fail,
Mhm,
but I have to force myself to at least try.
Mhm.
mhm. He gave you an example to look up to that really sat with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as you started out writing the book and you said you wanted to have it be a motivational tool for all of your employees, but then you start writing and all these lessons are coming through and it ends up being a memoir. When you think about that first chapter, what lesson was it that came through that made you go memoir?
Yeah, so the first chapter is basically it's about decision, right? Because
Yeah.
I start out the book talking about the ocean,
Mhm.
because we live next to the beach, and
Mhm.
the ocean is our source of food. I mean, after the Vietnam War, forget about meat. As a matter of fact, I have never eaten beef, right? In Vietnam, the only thing that I ate was just fish. That's my protein, and cactus. And it's just so funny. I tell people that I ate cactus in Vietnam, and then they laugh at me. And then a couple of years ago, I'm seeing in the supermarket now they selling cactus. I'm like, wait, I've eaten this stuff for free. Uh, but yeah, the lesson in chapter one is about decision, right? Because Dad make a decision that afternoon, he took my hand to say, "Son, we are going to visit your uncle," but actually telling me to visit my uncle is just to make me happy. But it's pretty much, visiting my uncle is to leave Vietnam and go find freedom. And it was a tough decision for him to make. And same thing with life, right? Same thing in life, that if we want to move forward, the very first thing is we got to make a decision. You cannot be, what if. Once you make that decision, you just gotta go full head on. You cannot hold back, because I always tell my students and my employees that motion creates momentum. So
Mm.
once you make a decision, that means you're creating a motion, and then boom, you just got to continue going in life, right? Because if you keep thinking, what if, you're gonna get nowhere. It's like, taking one step back and one step forward and two step back. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful that you ended up using your story to do that because I think your story is motivating. I think you are motivating. The lessons that you learn from your experience are powerful, and you can use those to apply to any aspect of life. Now, have you used this with your employees? Have you handed out your book to them? Have you used it in that way at all?
I love it, and it's kind of funny because I'm working for the federal government. It's always a conflict of interest to say,
Uh,
hey, my boss is selling books to me, but they are very supportive, and
mhm.
my employees know that I wrote this memoir, and I say, hey, you know what, this is a memoir. It's on Amazon. It's up to you to
Yep.
know a little bit of my story or not, and I am. Actually, you know what? I shouldn't even say I'm surprised at all, because they've been with me for the last 17 years now, and they know who I am, so they went in and bought the book. And the book, the message is about hope and courage, right?
Yeah.
In life, you got to have hope, right? There's always something over there waiting for you, right? And you just have to do it. But before you decide to do it, you just also have to have courage, right? And just
Mhm.
like I was saying earlier, not about thinking so much and overanalyze. It's about to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to muster up this courage so that I can get there. And while my journey to achieve my goal, it might not be easy, but you got to have hope.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about life. And I mean, in the story, and I don't know how far you got to there yet, and because I talked about my brother, right? I talked about my brother, who is um, another character in when Dad and I got to America. And for a very long time, for 20 plus years, it's something that bothered me for so long. But I know it is up to me to make it happen.
Mhm.
And don't want to spoil so much about the book, but yeah, it's an obstacle for me, that I used that message, hope and courage, in order for me to get there.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
when you think back over your journey, is there a moment in time in your life that just stands out to you above all the others of a time that maybe you were filled with that hope?
Yeah, it's is the time when I talked to my brother, whose
Mhm.
name in the book is Fong, and I thought that he would not understand of the story, the confusion that Dad and I had to go through, and I thought that it's gonna be very difficult for him to forgive and let alone forget. But when I sat with him and I was afraid, I'm trying to find words to make him understand, but yet he stayed quiet. And then oh, and it was a long, deafening silence
Mm.
until he asked me. He said, "Okay, you know what? How are my siblings doing?" And I was like, "Wait. Instead of asking me why, why were you guys were not there when I needed you?" But when he opened himself up to say, "How are my siblings doing?" I was like, "You know what? He is showing love. He doesn't
Yeah.
have hate, and that is my moment that sank in, and I was like, if he can express love, that means I have hope that one day we will not be split by the sea.
Mhm.
We will be reunited. And so because of that moment, he gave me the drive to continue with my goal, and that is, to have my family be together as one again.
Mm.
I'm curious about something because you hear so many people say about their parents, well, my parents did this, and now I have this perspective, or that affected me negatively. But with you look back on your experience, which was, you just said, either you're going to have freedom or you're going to have death. That's a very big thing. And you're looking back on that and seeing your dad do these different things, and you're proud of him, and you feel like that lifted you up and made you the person that you are in a sense. How do you have a good perspective and respect for your dad with all that you went through?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, Daniel. And it's I mean, there are times that I joke with my wife and I said, Dad has uh, five kids back then in the 1980s, and one on the way. And I'm like, well, he could have chosen the others. Why he had to choose me? I could have just died. Um, but to think back, um, you know, sometimes you really don't know where life is going to land you.
Mhm.
And I do believe that things happen for a reason. My religion, and in the book I talked about it, is Buddhism, and in Buddhism we practice the belief that we the law of attraction, right? And I don't want to go into too much of detail. And then the other one is karma. So it's basically karma and the law of attraction. It just go hand in hand. And then the other a big word is called reincarnation. And I believe that what, maybe Dad and I had made a promise somehow in the previous life, that in this life we say, hey, you know what? Let's do this journey together.
Mm.
And because of this journey, I was able to understand more, not just only for Dad, but I can understand more for myself, because every time when things happen to me, now or previously, I always go back to that journey, in the boat. And because I had that experience, it just gives me that courage to do anything. I'm like, hey, if I experienced that, that is real fear. That's not just only fear in your head. That's not saying,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
I'm afraid of public speaking. That's just imagination. being in the boat, I could have been dead. And if I can overcome that real fear, everything else is just imagination. Everything else is just rewiring my thought in order for me to overcome the obstacle. And and the reason why I don't blame dad is because I want to thank him to give me that experience. I mean, just imagine if I'm not saying my other siblings didn't get to do what I did, but if I didn't experience it, then I don't have that tool, for
Hmm.
me to succeed in life.
Mm.
That's my perspective of dad, giving me that chance to face the adventure with him.
I think that's awesome, and love how you are saying that you focus on the journey together.
That's the same thought I had as well. It's like I love that focus and that perspective because we all are on a journey in this life together. And no matter who you're with or who's beside you, that is the person that you're
Right,
in journey with, right? And so you're learning together, you're growing together. You don't know what to expect all the time together, but there you are facing it, making the best decisions that you can with the information that you have, with a
right,
good intention in your heart, and you have to move forward not knowing, but hoping and having that courage like you talk about.
right.
It's beautiful.
Right. Yeah, just with my karate students as well, and I have like I think I dedicated at least three chapters about my martial arts experience in the book, and I tell my students the same thing. I said, look, there's a reason why you are my students. It's a journey that again we had maybe promised in the previous life somehow that right now we are here together, so then we can experience it again to make it even better, right? And I cherish everyone who I encounter because they always give me a lesson to learn. Just like meeting both of you, Jenny and Daniel, this morning. Having this conversation allows me to learn something about your life, or for me to express even the other aspect of my life.
Mhm. Yeah. Now, when you are working with your students in the martial arts sense, what does that look like? I don't know a lot about martial arts or the work that's
Sure.
involved with that, so I'd love to
Yeah.
hear about it.
So when Dad and I made it to New York City, um, when you cannot speak English, and when you're the smallest boy in the class, and when you look different from 90% of the other kids, most likely you'll get bullied.
Mm,
And so I got bullied a lot. I got physically bullied. Um, Put it this way, I got physically bullied every single day. I was
Mm.
living in the South Bronx every single day when I walk home, and in the South Bronx is horrible during that time. Just imagine a 9-year-old boy walking to school. I'm talking about 2 miles walk, right? And do they have school buses? Yes they do, but for some reason they just didn't pick me up. They just didn't pick up kids who were living in that zone. Dad has to go to school. I have to walk to school every single morning, and you always gonna have kids who are older than you saying stuff, and half of the stuff I don't understand because my English was very limited at that time as well. But when you don't understand them, what happened? They beat you up, and that's
Mm.
what they did. And so when I was in around fourth grade, I met my other Vietnamese friends, because there were also other Vietnamese refugees who lived in the South Bronx at that time. And then we were so blessed that there was this martial art teacher, and he teaches Vietnamese karate for free. I was like, oh my goodness, yes, let's do it, because if he charges us, we don't have money to pay him anyway.
Yeah.
It's just so happened that he says for free. Now the only thing is this: he so we live on Fordham Road, and from Fordham Road, if you walk to Botanical Garden, it's at least a 30-minute walk, right? 30-minute walk, and he teaches every single morning, morning on every Saturday morning. And just imagine 5 young boys from the age of between 9 and 13, walk 30 minutes to botanical garden to learn karate.
Yeah.
And so I learned with him for a couple months, and I felt that confidence. I said, yes, I can finally fight back with these bullies. But same thing with what this teacher did, like my dad. He said, you know what? I'm teaching you guys karate, not to fight. Because if I'm teaching you karate and you're going to end up fighting, most likely you get killed.
Mm.
And he's right. He's right. Because, again, I don't want to spoil the story from the book. So one of my friend who learned karate with me, and something happened to him because his mindset was like, hey, I want to revenge.
Mm.
And so I after 6 months, he left us because he has to get married, and can't blame him, right? So he moved to Canada, got married, and so we got together and trained in a building instead. And then we took a break. And fortunately for me, it happened again when I was in college. I met another sensei, English guy. His name is Sensei Dombrowski, and I was like, my goodness, all he does with us was just a lot of push-ups and sit-ups, and I'm like, how many push-ups and sit-ups you got to do before you teach me how to punch and kick? But the funny thing is, he said this. He said, "Don't wipe your sweat." I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know about you, but when you work so hard and your sweat is dripping down from your forehead to your nose, you will swipe because it's so itchy.
Yeah.
But he taught me this lesson. He said, when I tell you guys not to wipe your sweat, I'm basically teaching you guys how to stay in control, right? Because your sweat is no different from just a distraction. You can have external distraction where people tell you, hey, you know what? You're not good enough. If you pay attention to people who tells you that, forget it. You just pretty much, drain your energy. And the other type of distractions are the distraction in your own head, the stuff that you tell yourself that you're not good enough, right? So when he says, don't wipe your sweat, basically he's saying, hey, you know what? Don't pay attention to it. If you learn how to not control your, to control your sweat, right? It's basically you are training yourself to control all the distractions that are coming at you. And I didn't understand that until like a few months training with him. And it has been for the last 30 years that I've been training with him. And here goes the thing. He also taught me for free. So I have made a commitment to myself that, you know what? I do not charge any of my students because I have met people in my life who had given me these wisdoms for free. And for the last 18 years now, this May is going to be 18 years, I don't charge any of my students.
Wow.
So
that's so nice.
Yeah. So
that's such a gift to give back.
Yes. And it feels great. It feels great that, when people think something is free, it has no value, right? And I tell them, I said, you know what? My mindset is different. You will find value because when I teach you this, the martial art, it's not just only moves. I'm sharing with you the philosophy that these senseis, we go senseis with teachers, have taught me, and I'm just passing it on.
So now, do you teach this in a group? Do you?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually teach at my workplace. At my workplace, I gathered all these engineers together, and I said, okay, guys, I know after 5 p.m. when we shut down our computer, either you're gonna go drinking or you're gonna do something that it's not gonna be healthy for your body. So come with me, and I'm gonna teach you how to do some punching, kicking, and you're gonna have a healthy body afterwards. So I was able to convince a group to train with me. I got as much as 50 students.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's awesome.
Yep.
You're probably like the coolest boss ever.
Thank you. In 2019, just like the entire world, when we were hit with the pandemic, I had to close down my school, and part of the reason is we just cannot be in the facility, and so I'm thinking, I was like, you know what? Again, we have to make things work, and I believe in like I said earlier, is motion creates momentum. So then I said, hey, look, guys, we cannot be together, but just like like us three right now, Zoom. Let's do Zoom. So I told him, I said, hey, you know what? All I have to do is create that Zoom account and you from the comfortable of your own home. And now none of you guys can be late because it doesn't, take that much to walk from one room to the other. So I have been teaching via Zoom for the last 2 years. Yeah.
Wow.
2019. Oh, actually almost 4 years now, right? Yeah, 19, yeah.
Yeah.
So how is it being on the teaching end? Do you, you were the student, so you're improving, but now you're teaching people and watching them improve. What's that feel like?
My goodness, and that's a amazing question, and I tell my instructors as well, and I most of my students are now fourth, fifth degree black belt, and I said, guys, being a teacher does not mean you know all the answer. Being a teacher, what it means is you supposed to go find the answer for your students, right? Because when your students ask you a question, it's not like you're not there to have all the answer, but you are there to take their questions and go find the answer. Because now, as a teacher, you become the student yourself. Because they ask you a question you don't know, you become the student, you go search for the answer, you come back and you relay that message to them. So being a teacher is like it's like a student and a messenger. And I tell them, I said, you know what, the most important thing is do not let your arrogance take over. Don't let your ego and pride take over, that now you have that black belt and say, hey, you know what, I am the sensei, and I know everything, and I am better than you. Look, the world does not work that way. There's always someone bigger and better than you in this world. So never think you are the best. And let's say if you are the best, you might be the best now, but there will be someone who's going to catch up to you very soon.
Yeah.
So how do you go about just encouraging people to be the best version of themselves?
My goodness. Lovely question. I did an entire speech about that, right? And the title of my speech is Comparison Kills Confidence. Right? How many times do we always look at that person who always succeed? And then we'll be like, you know what? I can never be that person. And that's it. Boom. Okay. Now you'd be like, oh, I'm just going to throw everything away because I know I can never be him or her. And then for those on your left and your right who are within the same journey with you, right? And you're so busy looking left and right, like, oh my goodness, that person is one step ahead of me. That person is also another a step ahead of me. And you always feel like you're in the back. So I tell my students, I said, look, comparison kills confidence. If you really want to compare, you got to stop looking in front and to the sides, but you got to start looking within, right? If you are better than who you were yesterday or wherever metrics that you want in the past, then that's golden. If you are becoming a better person by the day, that's the goal. Who cares about what other people do? That's their business. Worry about yourself. And that's the problem nowadays is we, and especially with social media, you turn on Facebook, Instagram, or however many other platforms, and you're like, oh my goodness, that YouTuber is just so good. How I'm gonna catch up? That's their problem. Your problem is to say, hey, yesterday I got 1 subscribers. Today I got 2 subscribers.
Yep.
And if you still stuck with 1, hey, at least I'm not going backward.
That's right.
Yeah, it seems like what you're saying about comparison kills confidence seems like it goes hand in hand with what you said before, which is motion makes momentum, because it seems like if you're comparing, there's not motion for yourself forward. It almost sounds like that would be motion backwards.
Yeah. Earlier when I said, yeah, I did a speech about comparison kills confidence. It was a speech that I competed in a Toastmasters International.
Yeah.
It's an international inspirational speech, right? And so I talked about, how I got on the tennis team. And here I keep on focusing that, oh my goodness, Adam just keep getting every single ball in. Adam keep, beating everyone on the team. Adam is playing number 1. And I got to my coach and I said, Coach, I can never be as good as Adam. And until when, he screams at me and he said, you know what? You need to learn how to focus on yourself. Because the more you're going to compare yourself to Adam, the more you're going to forget how good you are. And
Wow.
when he told me that, I looked in the mirror. I'm like, oh my God, look, I'm looking straight in the mirror. Who do I see? I see Len Tran. That's the guy who I should be comparing, not Adam, right? Because Adam, who knows? Adam might be playing, 7 days a week. That's why he's just so good. But if Len Tran right now plays only 5 days a week, and I got to this point, okay, fine. I'm gonna crank it up. I'm gonna play 6 days a week, right? Adam might, work way, way harder than me. There's reason why he got there. So it's just about me. Should I work harder than what I did yesterday? And that's what counts.
Yeah. That's amazing. So, speaking of working on things, what goals do you have set for yourself this year? I mean, you have this incredible job that you've been working at for a really long time. You have written a book that you followed the calling to do that. It's amazing. For anybody who hasn't read it, I recommend it. And you teach class to all these students. What's next?
Yeah, so my wife asked me that question all the time too. She's like, honey, you need more sleep. And I said, yes, it's true. Based on studies, health magazines and article, you need between, was it 7 to 9 hours of sleep? And I said, yes, that's one thing that I need to do is follow that article. But you know what? At the moment, I'm just gonna follow my heart. And my heart says this: I only need enough sleep that I can still run the next day. I'm gonna make a confession. I only sleep between 5 to 6 hours because my brain is constantly moving, constantly working. Not things that I do to better myself, but things that I can do to help other people.
Hmm.
Whether to help my student or yeah, the big vision is to help the world, but I'm going to focus one person at a time, right?
Yeah.
So I am working on my second book. It's going to be a motivational book. Actually, it's the draft is already done right now. It's editing.
Yeah.
And the title of the book is Break the Brick. The title is Break the Brick. And that is basically the brick is the obstacle. So you got to punch through the obstacle, punch through the brick in order to find the real you. So I'm going back to that first initial motivation to write the inspirational book. So that will be my second book. And also I am preparing for a TED Talk that's going to be this April. And I'm excited. I mean, nervous but excited
Yeah.
at the same
That's
time.
awesome.
Yeah, congratulations.
I
That is
know.
exciting. I asked the question and I'm like hoping there's another book in the mix, but to find out there is one's like, yay, but a TED Talk as well. That's so exciting. We'll be definitely thinking of you and keeping our eyes open for that.
Thank you.
I love that title, Break the Brick. If I saw that on a bookshelf, I'd pick it up.
Thank you. And it's so funny because as a writer, and I still consider myself a novice writer, but again, I'm not comparing myself to others. I'm comparing myself to me, that hey, I can write because I've already finished one book. And
Mhm.
coming up with a title is extremely difficult, right? Because you do want to have a title that grab and encompass the
Yeah.
message.
Yeah.
And so when I finished the book, I came up with a title. I said, look within, right? Look within.
Hmm.
And I said, you know what? That's not catchy enough. And so I was like, wait, I use a lot of my martial arts experience in there, and the martial arts philosophy. And I was like, oh, it makes more sense. You just say break the bricks, and you get the alliterations, BR, right? Bruh,
Yeah.
bruh. So I said, hey, let's go with the break the bricks. And it's so funny. A friend of mine who, probably both Jenny, John Gormley, who wrote Sunrise in Saigon. Yeah, he and I were having lunch, and I was like, hey, let's come up with the title of my book, see what you think. And he's like,
Yeah.
we're talking. It's like, break the bricks. That's it, break the bricks. So from now on, every time when you open a talk or a YouTube channel or whatever, just take a break out and break it. I'm I'm like, that's a great idea, John. But if you do like a 100 episodes, I don't know. I might need some like, icy hot or something.
The one thing that stands out to me still just so much is you just have this really wonderful personality, but it's because you have this really wonderful heart. And you can see it in everything you talk about and all these projects that you take on. Your heart is for other people and you want to help them and you want to propel them forward and help them not be stuck or, help them find the best version of themselves. Where does that come from? Where does your love and your heart for other people come from?
Yeah. Growing up, I had nothing. I had nothing. Trying to suppress some of the emotions right now. I talk about, in the book that if it wasn't for the church that was in front of my building, they gave me hope. Right? They gave me hope because when Dad wasn't around, that church gave me food.
Mhm.
We didn't have money to buy food. Dad and I were living on canned food every single day when my father wasn't home and I got home from school. As I'm talking about an 8-year-old child, right? I'll open up a can of sardines and throw it in a pot and start cooking it, and then have another pot, put rice and cook rice. Not like nowadays where you press a button, right? No, I never press a button. I cook real rice. As an 8-year-old child, you don't. I don't know. I haven't seen any kid doing that now. Maybe they are. But there were days that we didn't have any sardines. There were
Mhm.
days that I was starving.
Yeah.
But lucky for me was there's a church right in front of our apartment that I heard they were giving out free food.
Mhm.
So I went there and then I sat, I listened to them. I said, look, you know what? I'm here for food. And they taught me about God, and I respect all religions, and I listen to it because I think every religion has their values,
Mhm.
and it went like that for years. And even to the point where during Christmas time, I said, Dad, look, I heard they're gonna give out free toys. So my dad went with me, and we got in line. And when I brought the gift home, I opened it up, and I was like, a doll. They give me a doll. Dad, why can't they give me like a Tonka truck? Like one of my friends, they give me a doll. Uh, but Dad didn't allow me to throw it away. He said, you know what? We're gonna put it on the shelf because you got that for free. You got that as a gift. You don't throw away gift.
Mm.
So we put it on the shelf, and I still have a picture of it too. It's kind of funny. Um, and yeah, because of the church, and when I was in third grade, there's this incident where my third grade teacher asked me to come to the board and say, "Hey, Len, fill in the blank." And my reading comprehension just stinks. It was only 6-7 months in America, and the question was the boy blank the stick, and there were multiple choices A, B, C, and D. Now, when you don't know the answer, what do you pick? For me, I was like, okay, C comes to mind, right? So I was like, oh, go C. And apparently the teacher said, C, why would the boy swallow the stick? Because C would swallow. I'm like, oh, I don't know. And when you hear all the kids in the back laughing at you and the teacher's not helping either, and I can see that little smile on her face too, like, oh, well, he's an idiot. That scares me. That scares me for a long time. But I was lucky enough to have an ESL teacher, and her name is Mrs. McKeevan. She wrote a part in my book as well. And Mrs. McKeevan changed my life. And she said, Len, I believe in you. You can do it. So basically, when I look back, and there are many, many other characters, in my life and also in my book that made an impact,
Mhm.
changed my life around, that I feel as though it is my duty to give back. It is my duty to not live for myself in this world, but it is my duty to help whoever that I encounter with, who needs my help, or even to have me lend my ears, and I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do it for free, because love is priceless,
Mm.
and And I believe in that connection, and that's what sparked me to do things like this. And I mean, um, yeah, it's nice. It's nice to say, yeah, give me some money. I put in my pocket because I got to feed my family too. But I think I feel more content to say, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, I made that person feel good, and if that person feels good, I feel even 10 times happier because I just did something that not many people were willing to do.
That's absolutely beautiful. And, love really is priceless. And it's what connects us all together on the journeys that we're on. And it really is truly amazing when you can give that to someone else,
Yeah.
change their day.
Yes.
Well, is there anything else you can think of that you want to share that maybe we didn't think to ask you?
I would say this. We all have a story to share and to tell. So if your audience, if anyone feel that, I want to share my story, but I just don't know where to start. You know what? When my third grade teacher laughed at me, and when I have my friends in the back also laughed at me, it scares the heck out of me. It scares me so much that I decided to do engineering because you know what? Engineering, you don't have to write and you don't have to do public speaking. I just want to stick with just numbers and formulas. But I made that decision to say, you know what? I don't want to hide anymore, right? I know I have potential to do something better. I know I can be a writer. So in 2019, when I made that decision to say, hey, I'm going to write a book. I can be a writer. Just write. So if you have a story, don't worry about how it's going to be. Worry on what you can put on paper now, because we have editors nowadays. They can fix it for you. They can make it better for you. But you got to have content in the first place.
Yeah.
So if you have a story that you think the world need to hear, write it down. Your editor will clean it up for you. And remember this, put as much emotions in there as you can, because when I wrote my book, and it's just so funny, I never cried so much until 3 years ago. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm an adult. Why am I crying so much? And I feel to the point where I have to close my door because I don't want my wife to see me crying. But you know what's the funny thing? Crying helps me write better.
Yeah.
On a day that I'm like tearing up and with my eyes all red and everything, my son and my daughter will walk in and be like, oh, nothing, bad allergy day again. But I was like, oh my goodness, I just finished a chapter just like that. Whereas on a day where I'm happy, I'm like, oh, why is that? I'm still typing. I'm like, it's not coming out what I want. But on days when you're crying, it feels great. So if you have to cry, that's good news. That's good news. So that's my message to your audience.
Oh my goodness. I just love him and his personality and his story and all the good he just sets out to do in the world. What an amazing guy.
He really is. One of the most favorite things that he said that I like is when he said comparison kills confidence, which is comparing ourselves to others, we'll be not confident anymore. We have to focus, he said, on improving ourselves one little step at a time, day by day.
I know, I love that. For everybody who wants to learn more about Len and how to get his book, maybe even sign up for his karate class, check it out. His website information will be in our show notes. Thank you for listening to That's the #Truth. Remember to catch new episodes every other week on your favorite podcast channels. To learn more, visit us at jennymuscatell.com or muscatellministries.com.